In this particular vid, we're going to be looking at how to cast on in the round using the magic loop technique. Casting on with magic loop then is not a great deal different from casting on for DPNs. I've already cast on my stitches onto one of the needles. I'm just using a circular needle here with a long cable. I've cast on 60 stitches this time just for ease of demonstration. And what I next have to do, this by the way is the end that leads to the ball, and which is where I just finished the cast on, and here's where I started. And you can see the knobbly cast on edge there underneath the needles. First thing I do is I slide all of the stitches onto the flexible cable of the circular needle there. And then what I want to do is I want to bend this cast on edge over. So cast on to cast on edge, and then somewhere in the middle there you're going to see where two stitches want to pull themselves apart. I can grab hold of that red cable that's nestling in between and pull it out. There you go. I can pull a big long loop out of it, and that is the loop that gives the magic loop its name. So here we are then. I've now got things where I've got my two needles here. The one with the working yarn attached to it is at the top or furthest away from me, or the back, whichever you want to call it, and the one where the cast on started with the tail is the one that's nearest to me, or the one that's lower, or the one at the front, whichever you want to call it. And I've got the two cast on edges facing each other. So what I then want to do is I'm going to push this bottom needle into the stitches, so they're all going to be snug towards the tip there, but not enough to fall off. And this last needle tip here, this one at the back here, I'm going to bring the working yarn over the top of it so it sits to the back, and I'm going to pull out this one nice and long, enough slack so I can come round to a nice knitting position here. Then I'm going to sort of push those two cast on edges downwards there and bring everything round so I'm ready to start knitting. So I go into that first stitch there, and I can pick up this working yarn here, wrap it around my needle, and then draw a loop through, and knitting that first stitch there is what joins my two ends of the cast on, the end of it there and the beginning of it here, into one nice circle. And then I can just continue knitting around, and you can see I've got the ears, the two loops of cable there, they're not really in the way, they're just one to one side and one to the other. And I can carry on working all the way across my first needle there until I get to the end of it, and then I'll show you what to do at the halfway point. Coming up now to the halfway point here, and these last few stitches out of the way, 3, 2, oops, nearly, and then 1, and you can see that this needle now pops completely free. What I then do is I want to turn the work around so that the stitches that are on the needle are at the back and the stitches that are on the cable are closest to me. Then I'm going to push the cable all the way in until those stitches go onto that needle that's there at the front, and then I can pull the other needle out, the back needle, pull it long, slide everything back up onto the stitches there. I've made that very tight cast on, not made my job easier for this demonstration. And then once again making sure that the working yarn goes over that back needle, or the cable as it is in this case, then I can bring the back needle round to the front into a nice position for knitting with, and then stick it through that first stitch, and then carry on knitting. When I get to the end of the entire round, back to the place where I started, starting a new round is no different from what I've just shown you about doing halfway through, but when I get to that point I'll show you one more time. Here I am then right at the end of the first round and knitting those last two stitches, 1 and 2, and again that needle pops free. I rotate the work so that the needle tips are pointing towards the right once more, push the front needle into all of those stitches there, pull the back needle long, and there we go, make sure that they all fit on where they should. That's the tail out of the way there. And you may see that some of the stitches have pulled apart here. Well, that's just normal. That's how things go. It will tend to even things up as it goes along. The next couple of rounds that'll disappear, but if you want to make sure as you go into that first stitch there, you can just sort of pull the two needles apart. That'll tighten up the join nicely, and you can carry on knitting, and that little gap will disappear pretty much all by itself. There you go, that's casting on in the round for Magic Loop. That's Magic Loop. I use it all the time for all my socks. I never go anywhere else. Why would you?